Oh, look, Pete Hoekstra's back at the microphone telling Canada what we're allowed to say again. It's always the guys with the least credibility who talk the most confidently.
Yep, the dude warned Canada not to interfere in American politics while interfering with our politics while sitting on Canadian soil. Let me tell you, Pete Hoekstra puts the ass in ambassador.
And honestly, before we go any further, should Canada just declare this guy persona non grata and send him back to Michigan? Tell us in the comments. We genuinely want to know where Canadians are at with this.
And if you don't know what that means, stick around to the end because we explain persona non grata and share how we can work to give him the boot.
Because this time, he didn't just complain, he accused Canada of meddling in US elections, calling it foreign interference, which is wild considering Trump has been interfering with Canada the way an avalanche interferes with a cabin.
So buckle up. Today we're unpacking one of the worst diplomats Washington has ever sent north, why he's terrified Canadians might tell Americans the truth, and why we're not taking lectures from a DC hall monitor who's moonlighting as Trump's lapdog.
So here's what actually set him off this time. He was speaking at the National Manufacturing Conference in Ottawa, taking questions about, critical minerals and restarting trade talks. Pretty normal stuff. Until he paused and said, "I'm just going to get myself in trouble." And then he immediately got himself in trouble.
This man can't resist detonating his own stage. Picture this. He's sitting taking normal questions about critical minerals and trade. And then completely out of nowhere, he pivots back to the Ontario Reagan ad. The one that ran last month and bruised Trump's ego.
And with his whole chest puffed up, he says, "As far as we can tell, it has never happened in America before." Never happened? Buddy, it was a Reagan quote. Ontario wasn't telling Americans who to vote for. They were telling Americans the truth. You're the ones paying for Trump's tariffs on Canada.
It was Econ 101, not vote blue or vote red. If your democracy can't handle a basic explanation of who's getting screwed by tariffs, well, that's not foreign interference. That's just a guilty conscience.
And spare us all of the drama. First of all, we didn't come into America. We bought ad time, just like every company, every campaign, and every super PAC does every 5 minutes.
Second, you don't go and yell foreign interference because your boss doesn't like being fact-checked on national TV.
And third, and this one's important, calling an ally a foreign meddler is a serious diplomatic escalation. That's not a slip. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a calculated intimidation tactic.
Especially coming from a guy whose own president treats actual dictators and murderers with more respect than a country that stood with America through 9/11, Afghanistan, NORAD, Bosnia, the Arctic, energy security, supply chains, basically every crisis they've had since VHS tapes.
And then Pete tries to claim Canada somehow influenced elections in New York, New Jersey, and Virginia the following week, as if a bunch of Americans in line at Dunkin' Donuts suddenly said, "Wait, honey, I just saw a Reagan clip criticizing tariffs. I guess we're Democrats now."
Please! Those states weren't flipping because of a Canadian commercial. They flipped because Americans are fed up with Trump's chaos. The economy tanking, the reproductive rights being erased, book bans, censorship, layoffs. The list is longer than Trump's legal bills.
And while we're talking about meddling, let's be crystal clear here. America interferes in other countries' politics so often it practically has a punch card. Fifth intervention is free. And Trump has spent the last 2 years sticking his nose directly in Canadian politics.
Yeah, Trump publicly telling Canadians how to vote, threatening to annex us twice, calling our Prime Minister Governor Trudeau, telling Canadians Wayne Gretzky should be our PM, springs tariffs on us right before our election. That's a total coincidence? Right.
And let's not forget, U.S. right-wing networks funded the trucker convoy and are funding the separation movement in Alberta. They coordinate with Alberta and Saskatchewan politicians like it's a joint production. But somehow, we're the ones interfering? Give me a break, man.
And seriously, if your democracy is so fragile that a 30-second Canadian ad can topple it, well, that's on you. It's just bad governance.
So what's the real reason that Pete is panicking? Not because Canada influenced anything, but because Americans are waking up on their own, and Canada's ad just confirmed what they already felt.
Then panicking Pete goes on to say, if Canada wants to assert itself and participate in our electoral politics, I would suggest you seriously consider whether that's the best way to achieve your objectives.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Canada really needed a washed-up Michigan politician to explain how we're allowed to advocate for ourselves.
And now he's pre-scolding us. Pre-scolding for ads we haven't even aired yet.
And then he looks at the crowd dead in the eyes and says, I'm sorry, that doesn't happen in the United States of America.
Oh, sweetheart, everything happens in the United States of America. Political ads, dark money, super PACs for super PACs, and a presidential campaign that sells merch like it's a Black Friday sale at Walmart.
Canada runs one Reagan quote, and suddenly Pete's acting like we smuggled an election plot across the border in a duffel bag.
All right, before we go any further, let's just take a moment to remind ourselves what an ambassador is supposed to do, because clearly Pete missed the orientation day.
An ambassador's job has 5 parts. Just 5 easy things. Represent your country, build relationships, lower tensions, negotiate, and inform. What the Vienna Convention does not say is its made-up number 6. Publicly mock the host country's currency and scold them for talking back.
Or function 7. Throw profanity-laced fits at Canadian trade reps.
Then there's function 8. Casually threaten NORAD on national TV if Canada doesn't buy the F-35s. An ambassador's job is to diffuse. You smile and you absolutely do not deliver public scoldings like you're the substitute teacher who lost control of the class.
But it's Pete Hoekstra. He's not negotiating, he's not building bridges, he's not easing tensions. He's just bouncing from stage to stage, reminding everyone how angry Donald Trump gets when Canada tells the truth. And let's be honest, when your big diplomatic move is taking a jab at our currency, buddy, if that's your A game, I'd really hate to see the warm-up act.
If Pete had brought any less diplomacy to the stage, he'd have been escorted out by hotel staff.
But, his confidence there would be almost admirable if it weren't coming from the least qualified guy in the room.
Oh yeah, that's right. Let's take a quick tour of Pete Hoekstra's highlight reel, because he didn't exactly roll in here from the Diplomat Olympics.
First up, his time as ambassador to the Netherlands. He opened that gig by claiming there were no-go zones and politicians were getting burned alive.
Except that wasn't true at all. Dutch media pressed him, he denied ever saying it, then they rolled the tape, and Pete froze like he was buffering on bad Wi-Fi.
You don't recover from that. Oh, unless the US president appointing you is Donald Trump. In that case, failure is just your onboarding process.
And if you're wondering why this guy is the last person who should be lecturing Canada about political conduct, let's just take a quick detour back to 2012.
Oh yes, because Pete ran a Super Bowl ad that was so wildly offensive it made national headlines.
The whole thing leaned so hard on caricature, it practically toppled over.
Asian American groups called it offensive. Civil rights organizations condemned it. Media outlets tore it apart. Even Republicans said it was a terrible idea.
It blew up so badly his own campaign basically had to pretend it didn't happen.
But Pete, did he apologize? Nope. He doubled down and insisted there was nothing wrong with it. He absolutely stood behind it.
So when this man strolls into Canada acting like he's the guardian of proper political behavior, come on, man. The hypocrisy is so obvious it might as well be wearing a name tag. And then there's the part that really made Canadians spit out their coffee. Hoekstra said that he doesn't understand why Canadians are upset about Trump's 51st state comments.
If you don't understand why Canadians are upset about annexation threats, you shouldn't be an ambassador. That's literally your job, understanding the country you're standing in.
And since he doesn't understand, well, let's spell it out for him. Trump isn't joking about taking us over. He's doing exactly what he said he'd do. He's trying to pull it off through economic force.
Tariffs on everything from minerals to steel, trumped up fentanyl accusations and border security threats, annexation talk. He's trying to choke us economically. But he didn't count on Canadians being impossible to bully. We're stubborn, strategic, and we're united.
And now he's giving Canada the silent treatment. Like a preteen sulking in his room because we dared to tell the truth. Actually, scratch that. Comparing him to a preteen is unfair to preteens. They eventually grow out of it.
Canada isn't having any of that. That's why we're looking for new partners. That's why we're signing deals with Asia, Europe, Latin America, and the UAE. Because we can literally see the takeover happening in real time.
Pete Hoekstra can lecture all he wants. He can whine about meddling. He can warn about consequences. He can stomp around conferences like he's auditioning for a security briefing.
But at the end of the day, he's not dealing with the Canada of 2018. He's dealing with a country that's drawing lines, a country that's diversifying its economy, a country that's not going to be intimidated by Trump's errand boy on loan.
And if Pete thinks he's getting Canadians to back down, buddy, you're not scaring us. You're getting yourself replaced.
Canada doesn't need to take this. Not from Trump and not from his ambassador, not from anyone.
And let's just say it. Canada doesn't actually have to keep this guy here.
Seriously, we can declare him persona non grata. That's diplomat speak for pack your bags, chump.
It's the strongest tool a country has. You don't need a courtroom, you don't need a committee, you just say the words and the ambassador gets shipped home faster than you can say customs declaration.
Countries do it all the time when a diplomat becomes a problem, interfering in domestic politics, publicly threatening economic retaliation, mocking the host country. Those are textbook reasons, and Pete, he's not walking a fine line, he's cartwheeling right over it.
So tell us in the comments, should Canada show him the door? Because right now, the only thing keeping him here is Canadian patience, and ours might be the only one he hasn't burned through.
If Pete thinks Ottawa isn't noticing his behavior, well, he's delusional. We can push for a House of Commons petition, and we can demand a committee review his conduct.
Ambassadors don't stay when the host country decides they're a liability, and Pete's been a walking liability since he landed.
If Canadians want him gone, trust me, Ottawa will hear it. Persona non grata isn't a fantasy, it's a diplomatic tool and other countries use it all the time. Pete's not special, he's not untouchable, he's just overdue for a flight back to Michigan.
We're done being polite about people trying to push us around. Canada's moving forward, confident, united, and absolutely unbothered.
All right, team, if you want us to keep calling out the nonsense and if you want Canada's voices louder, sharper, and absolutely unbothered, hit that like button like you're swatting away one of Pete's bad ideas.
Drop a comment and tell us what you think Canada should do next. More ads in the USA? More allies abroad? Or should we just back down?
And if you want to keep Canadian media independent and outside the reach of Trump world, subscribe and share this with someone who needs a reminder that we don't bow to bullies and we will outlast them.
And if you're really part of the crew, join our membership. Grab the merch, hop on Substack, because the louder we are, the harder it is for people like Pete to pretend we're not paying attention. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. And if you want to check out that Pete Hoekstra interview, we have put it in the link below.
And check out our other jabs at Pete Hoekstra. We have been jabbing a lot because he's just such an easy target. See you next time, everyone.
Ciao for now.